Hey everybody, Thomas M. Copeland, Big Break Pod. Today we are talking to veteran casting director in South Florida, Lori S. Wyman, C.S.A. Stick around. Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Thomas M. Copeland, your host and creator here at Big Break Pod. And today, I've got a treat for you. If you have done any sort of work in South Florida as an actor or as a dancer, as a performer, you have more than likely run into this guest. Today's guest is Lori S. Wyman, C.S.A. She is a casting director here in South Florida for, oh my goodness, probably 30 or 40 years. She is awesome. She has really seen it all here in South Florida over all those decades. And so she was gracious enough to join our podcast here and do what she does best, which is just kind of talk about her experiences, give tips to actors, and really just kind of lay out her philosophy on work, life, and the balance of the two, really. She's really an absolute treat. If you've ever had if you've ever had the pleasure of working with her, as I have, as probably many of you, if you live and work in South Florida, you have as well. Some of my favorite things about Lori is that, man, she is no nonsense. Like, you can't get anything by this woman. I mean, don't try to pull a fast one on her or pull any tricks on her. She's seen it all. She is a ferocious defender and cheerleader for actors and her actors that she places and casts, but also just that she sees out there in the world. She has really seen it all. We talk about in the interview. She talks a lot about sort of how she got into casting in South Beach in the early '80s and casting on some of TV's biggest shows and movies that have happened in South Florida over these decades. She's got great stories about different actors who have come through her door, her physical door and her physical office when casting used to require that. Of course, these days, that's a relic of the past. But some of the stories that she has about some of the actors who have walked through those doors is really entertaining. But really at the heart of it, Lori came on this show, as she does with, many shows I'm sure that she gets invited to, for one reason, and it's because she loves actors. She truly does, and she loves giving tips and her advice to actors. She does it in her acting classes, which, by the way, I have attended. They were fantastic. She did a joint class with Terry Borland. I'll put the link in the show notes. Terry Borland, who's a commercial actor in LA, who is a very close and longtime friend of Lori. So they get together every now and then and do an acting class that's, maybe a weekend long or something like that, kind of an intensive weekend long. It's well worth every penny. I highly suggest it, especially the commercial one. I took sort of a whole page and a half of notes on that class that I would have really never understood about casting for a commercial had I not taken that class. Casting for a commercial is very different from casting for dramatic or comedic comedy, TV, film, and television. It's totally different. And of course, that's different from casting for stage, right? And so casting for commercial is its own unique beast where, it's really all about the smiles and smiling through your lines and sort of presenting a facade that's, commercial. It's sellable. It's likable. And so it's a very different sort of feel for me. And it was sort of out of my element. So I really appreciated kind of being handheld and walk through it in that class. That class was fantastic. So anytime you get a chance to join Lori's class, you absolutely should. And the way that you can join her classes and hear about her classes is a couple of ways. Number one, she has a Facebook group, Lori Wyman's office hours, I believe it's called. Do a search on Facebook for that. You should find that group. But also just at her website. Do a quick search for Lori Wyman Casting. I believe it's loriwyman.com. And you will find that website. And from that website, you'll be able to sign up for a newsletter. And then so anytime she puts out a new class, she puts a newsletter out. You'll be the first to know about it. And you probably want to hop into queue on those because I know they do sell out fast. The class I was in was totally booked up. And I did that a couple of years ago. So I'm sure you'll want to get in on those classes sooner. But look, She's incredible. She's a fountain and wealth of knowledge. She's a fountain and wealth of sort of tips and advice. And this was a really wonderful interview that kind of ran the gamut of sort of history of her and casting in South Florida and how casting has changed over the years. And sort of looking forward, kind of what casting is now that it's everything is self-tape, right? And so we've sort of moved from a world in which you used to walk into a room and give your best audition to sort of a world in which you get to sort of tape your best audition, right? And you get to have different shots at getting takes. When we talk a lot about sort of the mechanics of that, right? And the logistics of that. Do you have to get your self-tape in immediately? How do you build your lighting and camera around? Also, there's some portions of this that were recorded that we'll have on YouTube as well. It's worth checking out because Lori, of course, came prepared for this interview. She had her backdrop set up. She had all of her lighting and everything professionally set up. And it was a really beautiful view. And I really encourage you to check that out because if you have any questions about sort of what does a good self-tape look like, Lori did it in this interview. So take a look at that too. We'll post some of those clips on the YouTube channel for Big Break Pod, and you'll be able to find those. You'll also be able to find those on Instagram and some of our other channels as well. So stick around for the interview. Just a couple of minutes, about 60 seconds from now, we're going to get to meet Lori S. Wyman, casting director C.S.A. right here on Big Break Pod. Stick with us.
If you're an actor serious about your craft, then you know you're serious about improving your read, your presentation, and your on-camera delivery. And there's no faster way to sharpen your skills than with detailed, collaborative feedback from your fellow actors, directors, casting directors, coaches, and other creative professionals in the industry. So how do you get in front of the people you need to impress? With Show Coach. Available for Apple and Android, this exciting app gives you a stage to showcase your work, including self-tapes, reels, and monologues, specifically to solicit feedback from the professionals who can hire you. And for a limited time, Show Coach is absolutely free to use. Industry professionals can apply to become a coach and earn money for critiquing student posts. Download the app as a student or coach from your mobile app store or visit showcoach.app to learn more. That's showcoach.app. Show Coach, artists encouraging greatness.
Hi, everybody. Hello. Welcome back. And I want to welcome our guest today, Lori S. Wyman, C.S.A. Lori, thank you so much for being here. It means so much to me.
My pleasure. My pleasure, Tom. Always a pleasure to be here.
Likewise. Let me introduce Lori here. So Lori is dedicated to helping actors pursue their passions so they can live their dreams. Lori is a legend in South Florida casting, been casting here since 1979, and so many shows. I'm not going to name them all off, but most recently, Dexter Oranges. Oh my goodness.
Origins.
An actor who can't pronounce words, isn't that something? And many other shows, including Bad Monkey for Apple TV most recently as well. And Lori's book, The Organic Actor, Inside Secrets to Auditioning for Film and Television, is widely acclaimed, and it is a must-have for actors in and out of South Florida. With that, Lori has also been nominated for 8 RTOs awards and has 1 Emmy nomination. Congratulations on that. I'd love to hear about it. And with that, once again, just welcome to the show. And again, I really appreciate you taking the time. We have a lot to talk about today. The first thing I actually want to talk about is I told you I'd throw a little sneak at you. But before we get there, I think you were just in Europe recently. I saw online you were posting lots and lots of photos. Tell me about that. How'd that go?
Well, my daughter was studying at Lambda, which is London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts, and she was studying Shakespeare. So I said to her, I said, when you're done, I will fly over and we'll do some traveling together. So that's why I went, and that's why I went at this time. So we did London and we did Paris. Whoa.
Wow. So
Whoa.
She's done. Congratulations to her. That's fantastic. How's she feeling?
Good.
Awesome.
Yeah, she really enjoyed it.
Is she gonna stay?
A lot.
Is she gonna stay over there, or is she thinking about coming back?
No,
home?
she came back with me.
Oh, okay.
Came back with me.
Got it. Great. I have been to Europe a few times. France all day. Loved every second of Paris and Spain. Did you guys get a chance to go to Spain by chance, or were you up more in
No,
the north?
we
Or
just had a yeah, we just had a finite amount of time, so we just did London and Paris.
wonderful, cool.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a
Well,
lot, you know.
well, welcome back home and welcome back to reality and the world
Oh,
of casting. Just curious, did you come back to some new projects? Is there anything that you can talk about or anything that's kind of on your desk these days?
I did come back to a couple because I have this client that I've cast probably 3 dozen movies for over the last 5 or 6 years. Rom-coms mostly, but some like Lifetime kind of suspense thrillers. I love them. And he wanted me to do one right before I went away. And I said, no. He's like, no, what do you mean, no? I said, you know what? I'm going to be gone for 10, 11 days, whatever it was. I don't want to have to look at my daughter and go, oh, I can't. I have to watch some videos today. I can't do today. So I said, I promise you I will call you the minute I get back. So I called him. I came back Sunday night. I called him Monday. And I texted him actually. He texted me back like 2 hours later. Okay, I've got a rom-com coming up. We shoot the end of September and you'll have a script next week. Are you available? I said, yes. So I'm doing that. And I'm doing a public service announcement for a client who's doing, this is a passion project for him on sex trafficking, which I always love doing public service announcements because I know that they help people. So I've got those 2 projects and then a couple more that are in the distant future, but in conversations. So yeah.
Wonderful. In the hopper, as we say, right? In the hopper. Very cool. So I understand, Lori, that you have also a master's degree. I missed that in your bio, but that's great. And your master's degree is with a concentration in drama therapy. So I'm curious. My first question is sort of when did you discover that you love casting? Because I think that's a really interesting question. I got a feeling you've got a very interesting answer. And did that coincide with your master's degree and your studies? Did that coincide with your academic studies at all?
Okay, so growing up, I was always into, I did theater, I did nothing professional, mostly community and school and things like that. And I graduated college with a degree in speech and communications, which basically prepares you for nothing. And so here I've got this great big degree in something, and I didn't know what to do with it, but I did always loved performing and I loved being around the arts and I loved being around actors. I just loved that. And I graduated from the University of Miami. And after I graduated, a friend of mine was still in school and one of her professors made an announcement saying that one of the talent agencies in Miami was looking for someone to do filing and typing. Now here I was, 3 years old, 22 years old, whatever, just out of college, Miss Fancy Pants, with the long nails. But I knew in order to get into this business, you had to start anywhere you could.
Yeah.
So I made the phone call and I went into to interview with the 2 ladies who owned the agency. And when I finished with my interview, they said, well, we have several other people to interview. We'll get back to you. And I walked out of that office and I remember I could visualize I was standing at the elevator. I looked at that elevator and I went, they don't have anyone else to interview. That's my job. Like how when your gut knows something?
Yes.
My gut said, that's my job. And I think they just didn't want to jump on me and go, we want you. Anyway, I got the job. I worked as an agent in a talent agency for, I think it was like 5 years. And then I started working for a casting director. The reason I wanted to be working for a casting director as opposed to a talent agent was because I wanted more of a hand in casting. I would call the casting directors when I was an agent. I would call the casting directors and I would say, I got this great guy, you got to see him. And if they said no, like I knew this guy was going to be great. And I'm like, no, they're great. Because I really had a great eye for talent. I knew what I was looking at. So I wanted more of a hand in casting. And then the casting director who was handling the Miami Vice television series was looking for somebody. So I reached out to her and that's how I started working for her as a casting in a casting director capacity. and I was doing Miami Vice, the television series, the iconic television series.
Yes. Yeah.
Here I was this kid in my 20s, and whoa. But when I was doing Miami Vice, we were all kids in our 20s and 30s. I mean, you don't know all the actors that came into my office, because eventually I went and I worked in the hotel where the production office was, which was the Alexander on Miami Beach. So I stopped working for that particular casting director, and they actually hired me away from her. And then I started working in their production office. But people walked in my office. We didn't know who they were. They were not anybody at the time, but I met people like Julia Roberts. Nobody knew who she was. Helena Bonham Carter was a 20-year-old kid. Mike Chiklis, who had just finished doing this movie called Wired about John Belushi. Well, none of that stuff had come out yet. So we were like, oh, yay for you. How exciting. And we met, you know what I mean? Like, because it was like, if I tell you I just shot Bad Monkey. Okay, so Bad Monkey, well, you don't know if somebody who's in Bad Monkey today is going to be giant in a year or two.
That's right.
So we met so many actors. I have Stanley Tucci came year after year after year. Stanley Tucci was one of our buddies, and now Stanley Tucci,
Yeah.
And so many actors that came in that I met who were just, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and excited that they were coming to Miami and shooting a television show. And so, and we all were, I of course, hindsight is 2020.
Yeah. I
had original Miami Vice scripts. I could have asked all those people to sign my scripts. They all would have.
That's right.
And then I would, but who knew, right?
And it would have been okay. You could break that rule back then, right? You could break the autograph rule. I did an episode.
Knew.
Yeah, I did an episode about how to be a professional on set. And one of the things you do is you never ask for an autograph. But you can break that when you're 20, everybody, if you hear that rule and you're casting for a huge show.
Right. And you don't know. You don't know. And
so
everybody
you might as well get one.
Exactly.
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that. So another episode that I did was with Gil Younger, who is the director of 10 Things I Hate About You, and also Ellen for 10 years in the 1990s. Really, really wonderful episode. And he talks a lot about how when Heath Ledger walked in the room for that casting, he just said, that guy's going to be a star. Cast him. I wonder if you had those same feelings too in these times when you were in Miami Beach casting for these TV shows and these soon-to-be faces, who became famous later and became known later. I wonder if you had those feelings as well.
Yeah, I remember I was doing a class. I teach auditioning for film and television, which is how you and I met. Mm-hmm. Doing an in-person class here in my studio, which is where I'm sitting. And there was this kid who came in. His name was Oscar Hernandez. And Oscar was studying at New World School, I believe, and he was so good. And I thought, wow, you're really good. And I brought him in to read for a couple of movies that I did and booked him on 2 different movies. And then he got accepted to Juilliard, and he went to Juilliard. And then he came back a year later and he auditioned for me. And I was like, oh my gosh, Juilliard ruined you, because he was so less is more. He was really great. And then he went away, and, they were doing theater, so he was really big and over the top. I was like, no. Anyway, he changed his last name to Isaac. Oh. Now we know him as Oscar Isaac. But
that's so funny.
Yeah, but there were a lot of actors that I've encountered over the years that, they persevered and they pursued and they didn't give up and they kept going, and, that's the beauty of what we do with actors, and what you guys do and what actors do is you get better every time you take a class. You get better every time you do a play or you do a show. You can keep getting. It's like working out. That I equate exercise, working out.
Yep.
I can walk in being a skinny little no muscle in my body. And I can take 6 months or a year and eat right and really work out and do the weights and don't give up. And a year later, I can be a bodybuilder.
Yeah, totally.
And right?
Yeah, totally.
Same idea with that.
Yeah, totally. Yep, it's a
Yeah.
muscle. It's a muscle that you flex. There's no question about that. And also you flex it over the course of your lifetime. I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer in the. I talk a lot about on the show about sort of the marathon of this career choice. If you're lucky enough to have it be a career choice, this is a marathon, not a sprint. This is a lifelong. This is a lifelong journey. And so so it's funny. So Dexter Origins. I said it right this time. Dexter Origins has been cast, I believe. Were you handling the extras casting on Dexter Oranges? Is that right? Jesus. And there I go again.
Origin. No, I wasn't. I did the extras on the original Dexter.
Okay, got it.
I did principals and extras on the original, but now I just do principals on projects. I don't do extras on projects
So
anymore.
two questions. Back when the pilot was being cast, there was a blonde kid who would have been about 20 years old with this tattoo on his arm who walked in and booked an extra role on the pilot. Yes, that was me. And of course you remember him because he was a star and he was going to be fantastic and he was going everywhere and yada yada yada. Oh my God, he's great. No, and so I have this funny joke that I say is that I was in Dexter, the original one. I'm like the very first minute when he's driving through Miami Beach, I'm like barely in the shot, in the corner, hardly there. But my question about it, my serious question about it, is that I know a lot of folks who are trying to work as an actor full time, and so what they'll do is they'll take a lot of extra work. Now, I am of sort of an age and kind of a resume and kind of a place in my life where I don't do extra work. I'm wondering if you have any advice as far as around extra work. Would you advise me to go do extra work because there's a value in it, or would you say, and maybe it's more for actors who are kind of just getting started and kind of want to get their feet wet on set and yada yada? I'm curious to what your thoughts are on that.
Okay, so yeah, I do have thoughts on that. I've cast tens of thousands of extras on movies and TV shows and commercials over the years. When you're first starting out, yes, absolutely do as much work that can get you on a set, that can get you in front of people, because I believe work begets work. So when you're on a set and you're with 20 or 30 or 50 other people, you start to talk. And somebody says, my agent is blah, blah, blah. Oh, I never heard of them. Oh, they're great. You might get an agent by being on a set. Or I know a couple of extras, girls, who worked on a couple of different sets and ended up marrying the star.
Oh, really?
Actually. Lorenzo Lamas ended up, he married, he's not married to her now, but he was married to a girl that he met. She was an extra on the set.
That's fine.
So I've heard stories. I'm not saying you're going to go be an extra and then you're going to get married. That happens as well.
Yeah.
But I just think being on a set, especially if your idol might be working on the show, like, oh, I've done shows with Robert Redford and Michelle Pfeiffer and Jack Nicholson, and I've done shows with really, really big names. My very first big movie was something called Up Close and Personal. And I received a phone call from the Los Angeles casting director, and he said to me, all I have is a bunch of extras. Would you be interested? Now, here I had already done the Miami Vice television series. I did the Burt Reynolds B.L. Stryker television series. And I get a call from an LA casting director. It's just a bunch of extras. And I was like, but I hadn't really been getting movies. I'd really only been doing television. I just needed to get my foot in the door. I needed somebody to notice me. So I said, yes. Well, a bunch of extras turned into 18 SAG principal speaking roles. Wow. And a bunch of extras.
Yeah, wow.
So you never know, when you say no, and one time I said no to more recently, because I don't really do the extras anymore. And more recently I got called to do a series and they said, we only want you to do extras. And I was like, no, I'm not going to. So I said no. And they were foreign. And their definition of extras meant everything that wasn't the lead.
Oh.
But I didn't know that, so I said no, thinking it was just going to be a bunch of extras. somebody else said yes, and I'm like, wait a minute, and they were casting all of these principal roles. So, oh well, we live and learn.
Yeah.
But so then fast forward. So now let's say you've been in the business a little while and you're doing lots of extra work. Then you might want to say, well, I don't want to be one of 50 or one of 100 in a stadium. But maybe you might want to be a featured extra, where a featured extra, when I did Wild Things, the movie Wild Things, there was Robert Wagner and Bill Murray. And they were two guys, two big stars, eating lunch, and I needed to find a waitress. And the waitress was a featured extra. It was just the waitress. She was an extra, but a featured extra. So I asked this girl that I knew, it's just you and these two guys. I was like, yeah, I'll do that. So maybe then, and oftentimes they throw a line at you. So then they throw a line at you, and then
that changes contractually, as I understand it, right? That can contractually change things.
Oh, 100%. Well, if I book you as an extra, let's say it's $150 as an extra.
Yeah.
And then they ask you to say, is there anything else, sir?
Right.
You go from the extra job goes away, and then they give you a SAG contract for the day.
Right. Got it. And is featured extra something that you will normally cast for? Or like in this example, you called up a friend who you thought would be good. Is this something you would normally cast for? Or is it more common they might say, hey, I need this role. Do you know somebody? And you pick your phone up and go through your Rolodex and find someone.
So what they often like for featured extras, they like to see pictures.
I see.
They want to see pictures. If they say to me, which has happened on Bloodline, if they say to me, it's a featured extra, but we want them to do a videotape, then I answer by saying it's not a featured extra. It's a SAG principal.
Is that right?
Because a featured extra, a featured extra is not going to have to do a self-tape.
I see.
But if you need the self-tape, then you're going to have to pay them a lot more. I'm very protective of the actors. I don't like to see anybody getting taken advantage of. I don't like to see anybody because I've seen it too much over the years. And now I feel like I'm in a position where I can protect the actor. I've seen a lot of productions take advantage of actors. And that's why it's important to have a good agent.
Right.
A lot of agents don't know the rules.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. That's actually a place that I wanted to go to in this conversation too today, which is that really, I mean, every casting director I've met, including you, absolutely loves their actors, are cheerleaders for the actors, will push a particular person in a particular role if they feel like they're right for them to the producers, will go to bat for those actors. I've seen that as well. But you in particular, I have to say, are fiercely protective. You even use the words yourself, but fiercely protective over actors. I remember us talking, or I think in maybe your class, you talked a lot about, how productions may or may not pay on time in this right to work state. And right to work, of course, is its own conversation for another time, but essentially just that production companies can just be slow to pay or, not pay or try to join you SAG or try to push you to SAG when they don't have to, or they can't, even more specifically. I guess I'm just curious, where did this zeal for actors really come from? Does it come with being a casting director? Is there some part of you that maybe runs a little deeper under the surface about this love and protection that you have for your actors? Maybe it's just experience over the many, many, many years and just seeing basically all things under the sun happen and wanting to prevent them.
I think there's a lot of answers to that question for me. I know that a lot of my casting director friends wanted to be actors. And so, as I did too, I still think before I get out of this place, I would love to do another play.
I you just cast yourself. Why don't you just cast yourself next time?
I don't cast theater. And I've been asked many times. I've been asked many times by producers if I would take a particular role, and I always say no. And I know casting directors who do that, and I don't like that. I think it's not fair. Here I am watching, actor after actor after actor do the audition, and I'm watching, going, okay, they're doing that, don't do this, don't do that, And after 50 auditions, the producer goes, would you do it? And I go, no, because of course I'm going to do it brilliantly. I'd have to be brain dead not to be able to have picked up from But there are some casting directors who go, oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
And then they justify it by saying, well, we couldn't find an actor. I'm like, oh, yeah, you could. Yeah, yes, you could. So that always upset me. I have a job. And I always say to them, I have a job. These people need a job. So you've got to find somebody you like. And I've had gotten into it with a couple of producers. No, I want you. I'm like, I appreciate that. I'm not going to do that. So, but having said that, I think the reason that one of the reasons that I really pull for the actors is because I know what they're doing is so hard, and I know what they're doing is it takes so much. There's so much rejection over the course of the career, and there's so much work, and there's so much, your emotions are really, do that kind of thing. I love actors because they're doing what I couldn't. They're doing what I couldn't. I took the safe job, if you will. And even though, I'm told this is not a safe job that you're doing. This is not a safe job. I mean, you're as a casting director, I'm looking for the next job the same as you are. But usually I get it, and then I work for a while. As an actor, if you get it, you might work a day.
Sure. Yeah. True. Couple of days if you're lucky, you got a decent shoot.
Exactly.
Sure. Right.
And so when I book a movie or a TV show, I'm usually on it for weeks and weeks, so it can pay some bills,
Yep.
But my husband's an actor, and I watched what he went through to get jobs. And I watched all the prep work. And back then, it's changed a little, as you know, from when I first started out to now. Back then, when you went on an audition, you got in your car or you got a plane ticket and you went to wherever.
That's right.
Now you can do a self-tape, and they've got their pluses and minuses, but you can do a self-tape and you don't have to drive 4 hours and drive back 4 hours. And that's wear and tear in your body. You got to have a decent vehicle to be able to do that. Then the gasoline, the tolls, maybe you're going further than that, 6 or 8 hours. You've got to swing for a hotel room. It's a lot. And I watched all the times that my husband did that, and my heart broke. I mean, he loved what he did, and he had a very successful career, but and whenever I find out that a production is trying to pull one over on an actor, I will say something like, you can't do that. I was doing a series not long ago, and they booked a kid. And after they booked him and we did all the paperwork and we got him all set up, the director woke up, I say. It's like, okay, he didn't see any of the emails for a week that they said, we're going to book him, we're going to book him, we're going to book him, we're going to book him. Finally, after we booked the kid and everything is together, the director goes, oh, no. Here comes the emails. No, he's too young. Like, he was too young 3 days ago, I called the producer and I said, and so they said, you have to recast him. And I said, okay. And I called the producer. I said, you have to pay him. You have to. You can't do that. You can't do that. And the producer she was very good. And she said, I know.
Got it.
Yeah. So yes. So we, So I just like to look out for the actors.
And also to just say that that's not anything he would have ever looked out for, or that maybe even his parents would have ever even known. I mean, I wouldn't have known.
Oh no, the agent should know.
The agent should know. That's right. Right.
But I don't think the agent, because when I called the agent to say we have to cancel him, the first thing the agent should have said to me was, "You have to pay him."
That's right. Yeah.
But they didn't. They did. And when I called the agent back, I said, he will get a contract and he will be paid. The agent was like, oh, that's great. Thank you. I'm like, no. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's right. That's why we have a union. That's why, non-union, all bets are off. If it's non-union, And I know we could do
so
a whole
this was a union project. Okay, and that's why these rules were in place, because it was a union project. I understand.
That's right. That's right.
Got it.
Yeah. So we could talk 2 hours on that topic too.
Definitely.
You know.
Yeah, I'm sure, and that topic can go all over the place. I know. So you mentioned self-tape. It's like you're following my agenda and just taking me down it, Lori. Because my next question, I know you're actually not, but my next question was actually about self-tapes, and so sort of like the new ways of self-tapes. Of course, now, so I've been in your seat casting for commercials that I've shot, wrote, and directed, and done, and so like I've been in the seat you're in where I have to sit on the backside of casting networks, and I cycle through, and I see everything, and I market this, and I save that, and it is a grind. I'm curious about how, to see if your way of watching and sort of analyzing, kind of evaluating auditions has changed in the self-tape era. Has what you look for shifted? Has what you've changed shifted in self-tape versus in-person? And if you were to give any advice to actors on one of the two, would your advice be different for self-tape versus in-person?
So here's the thing that a lot of us meaning a lot of us casting directors, try to ignore as best we can. And that's to make, like, I'm in my casting studio now. So here I am in front of my blue wall with my softbox lights and all the equipment here. So I look, pretty okay. So if I did a self-tape like this, that would be great.
Yep.
And I realize that most actors might not have the perfect blue backdrop and the right softbox lights and et cetera. So we try as best we can to just judge the performance. Having said that, if you have a blue wall, or let's say different, you have a beige wall, and you have beige hair, and you're wearing a beige shirt, and you have beige skin, it's like you're gonna like melt into the wall. So I realized there were so many people who had no idea how to self-tape, no idea. So I have a friend who is really great with the technology of self-taping, and I said, I think we should put a class together to teach actors. And so I've been doing that since the pandemic. We do it a few times a year, and so many actors have taken it, and so many actors have raved how it has upped their, the quality of their self-tapes. The thing that people have to know about self-tapes is the sound has to be flawless, and really this picture has to be clear and clean. So often when I teach a class, I see somebody and it's very foggy, and I go, take a tissue. They look at me, I go, take a tissue and just wipe the lens right there. And it goes from being foggy to, I said, now, are you self-taping on this device? Because if you are, look at how foggy it is.
Yeah.
And just little things that people don't think of.
Yeah, it's the little things. Or it's the technical things is really what we're hearing too. So the actual performance itself hasn't changed much for you in terms of what you evaluate and what you're looking for. It's it's all technical.
And it's a shame because here you are, you're an actor. And I when I first, several years ago when we started getting into all the technology of it, I remember my husband set up this whole thing for me in my office, and I looked at him, I went, whoa, I am a casting director. I am not a tech geek. But in order to be effective as in your career, you have to be a tech geek, or you have to find a support person who can be. See, years ago, what I would do, we used 3/4-inch tapes. They were these tapes that were about that big, like that, and that thick. And I had this machine that you would break your back if you tried to
like just heavy. Dead weight. Yeah, just dead weight.
I mean, it was like dead weight, exactly. And I would stick this tape in, boom, and I would tape on it. And and then you pull it out and you have to pull out the tab in the back. I mean, it was a whole different thing. And then I would have to package it all up and run, because I was always running late, run to Federal Express and get it in the FedEx and make sure they got it overnight and blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, then you did VHS tapes and you did mini DVs and you did DVDs.
And these are for taping for yourself, to be clear. You're talking about taping for yourself for an audition is what you're saying.
No, I'm talking taping for my company. Yeah, Lori Wyman Casting.
Oh, I see. Right.
That was.
Got it.
And I did a casting.
Got it.
Yeah.
Taping your clients, your actors, taping them. And
for my
actors
for casting. Exactly.
Yeah. Like 10 more steps. Then,
exactly.
Right.
So from us, as a casting director, I couldn't just be a casting director anymore. I had to know the technology. Yeah. I had to make sure the lights were right. I had to make sure the sound was right. I had to make sure the you know, some clients wanted 3/4 inch, some clients wanted VHS, then they wanted a cut down. So you did it on this 2-hour VHS, and we didn't like now. You want to cut down, you go, you click on the little
little timeline bar there, yep, and you kind of move your finger and you're done. Yeah.
Easy.
That's right. That's right.
Easy.
That's right.
Right? But before it was rewind, fast forward, rewind, fast. Oh, okay, there it is. Then record onto another machine. I mean, literally hours and hours and hours and hours just to do a cut down. It was a lot of work. So in that respect, I'm glad all that's behind me.
Sure.
But as far as self-tapes versus in-person, here's what I have to say. Doing self-tapes, collecting self-tapes, I can see way more people. I can see way more actors for an audition. If I have to stand on my feet and invite you in, if I'm doing auditioning, let's say for a movie or a TV show, I can see, if I'm going at a good clip, I can see 2 actors every 15 minutes. It's 8 actors an hour.
Yeah.
Some
limited. It's got a ceiling. Yeah, it's got a ceiling is the point.
That's right. And I'm not starting at 6 a.m. and going till midnight. I mean, right. So I do a full day, an 8-hour day. And then I'm so detailed. So everybody has a time slot. Well, you know, this one's late and this one's early and this one, can I come in the afternoon, and throws the whole schedule off. And I'm like, no, you know, I had an actor come during my lunch break once, and I said to him, I'm so sorry, I'm at lunch. You can come back after lunch. And he said, I can't come back after lunch. He said, I have to see right now. And I said, but I'm at lunch. And he said, well, then don't eat lunch and see me. Wow. You don't even know the stuff. I had some girl come really late at the end of the day. I was done. My FedEx box was sealed and it was on the bench waiting to go. And she came in like 30 minutes after the audition was over, the day was over. And she started screaming at me. There was traffic out there, and you open that box and you take that tape out and you put me on it. I mean, you don't even know some of the stuff that I've heard.
Yeah, it's wild. It's good to put that behind us. That's for sure. It's good to put, yeah.
But now, if you say to me, oh, Lori, I know the deadline's 5 o'clock. I ran it. Can I get it to you at 5:30? Sure.
Yep.
I don't have a FedEx deadline. I don't have a client breathing down my neck. And I can watch your videos, which I've done, at midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. I get up really early. I'm much better in the morning. I get up really early, prop my laptop up on my knees. I lay in bed and I watch for hours and I watch. And this way, instead of seeing 8-10 people for one role, I can get 40 or 50 auditions for one role.
And so
I go click.
Yeah, and so in your world, more is better. You would want to see more than see less. Let's say you want to see more on the aggregate versus less quality. You'd rather just get through the aggregate in case you find something that really jumps out at you.
Yeah. And I can't send that many to my client.
Right.
So the way it works is my client doesn't want to see 25 auditions for the role of the nurse.
Right.
My job is to see and then narrow it down to the best. Sometimes they say, send me 5. Sometimes they say, send me 7 or 8.
That many? They might want to see that many?
I try to do 6 to 8 if I have that many good ones.
Okay, got it.
And And sometimes I don't even have that many. I remember doing an audition once, and I called the client and I said, I got one guy. He goes, "Oh," and he booked him. You know, that's what I had one guy, you know. And I always say to my client, I only have one, but no, you only need one.
That's true.
You know,
That's true. That's one way to look at it. That's great. What a lucky
but,
dog.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't put people on tape anymore. It takes a lot of time.
Sure. Right.
It takes a lot more time. And then this way I can see more people. Plus, actors, traffic now is insane. I don't care where you are. Traffic is insane. So you're up there and I'm down here, and it's pouring rain out, and you have an audition at my office at 4:00 in the afternoon, and traffic, and there's an accident on 90 Thunder, an accident on 95. Yep. And now you're 45 minutes delayed. And by the time you get to the casting office, you're so frazzled. So this way, you're at home and you set everything up. And if you make a mistake on a take, you do it again. Make a mistake.
It's a better world. I love it. Every now and then I will see, actors kind of complain about self-tapes because there's a hurriedness behind it. Oh, there's this feeling that I've got to get it done and get it in because, the early bird gets the word. I know of at least one casting director specifically who always puts in the casting notes, early bird gets the worm. So I think it creates kind of some anxiety around, is my lighting right? Is my picture right? My phone died. I got to charge it up first. I got to set everything up. It's interesting. I kind of got into this. I get into this whenever I see this come up because I have such a particular position on it, which is that you don't have to worry about any of that stuff, in my opinion. I have in my office, I guess I'm privileged enough to own my own home, so I have an office, and in my home, I painted, my wall, one part of my office wall, navy blue. There's nothing else on it. It's just navy blue, and I've got a light that's already set up, and it's all plugged in, and I can just step up and hit record, and I can just go. I also work from home, so I've got that advantage as well. Again, I know an advantage that not everybody has. But sort of the point is that I don't rush myself, and I don't push myself off, because I think that the whole, we want the casting tape sooner rather than later, hurry, is, in my opinion, tell me if I'm wrong, but it's casting directors just kind of trying to get their tapes in and see if they can find somebody that they like so they can put it up to the client and get it booked and they can move on with their lives. I could be wrong about that, but that's kind of what I sense. And the truth is, they're going to watch tapes for the next couple of days until they find somebody that's good and that's right for the role. And so,
but if you're sooner rather than later and you're good, then you're in. But let's say you are good, and somebody gets theirs in earlier than you, and they're really good. They may never get to your, and I've had people say to me, well, why do you put a deadline then? Why do you put a deadline of Tuesday at noon when you really want them Sunday night? It's like, because I want to give people time, and it doesn't always mean that I'm going to see things Sunday night instead of Tuesday at noon. I have to give a deadline. I can't say, get it in tonight by midnight when I put it out this afternoon. Some actors do that. Some actors do that. But it's because when we're in the thick of it, when we're seeing, the sooner we can get stuff in, we can get that taken care of and on to the next one.
So you can, okay, good. So this is good. This is good clarification point. So you may have a deadline that's sometime in the future, but if you get an actor that comes in and they've got that role right, and it's the first role you've seen, if it's the first person you've seen that's right for it, and you will forward that on immediately. You won't wait for the deadline to pass. You'll forward that onto the client. If the client likes them, you'll book them, and that deadline is non-existent now. Or do you wait until the end of the deadline? And maybe different casting directors are different, so I recognize I'm just asking Lori what sort of Lori's thing is. I'll
wait till the deadline, but I start watching earlier. And a great example story is, I was doing a pilot for some television series a couple years back, and I was looking for a stepmom, but like the stepmom where the father is older and the stepmom's only a couple years older than the stepdaughter, and she's all, fancy and snobby and that whole thing.
Should be able to find that in South Florida pretty easily, right?
So that was the character, right? So I put the casting out on a Thursday. And I gave everybody Tuesday as the deadline. I like to try to do it before a weekend if I can, to give people, if people are working, then they have the weekend, whatever. Saturday morning. Now, I have a vacation home, and I was at my vacation home. So I wasn't planning on looking at any videos until Tuesday, the deadline. So I get a call from my client Saturday morning. I put the casting out Thursday. This is Saturday morning. Client says, I haven't seen anything yet. I said, oh, no, you haven't, because the deadline's Tuesday. And he goes, Tuesday? He said, well, here I am sitting around all day, and I have nothing to look at. I have nothing to do. I said, oh, okay. He goes, didn't anybody send in a video yet? And I had a handful. I said, yes, they have. And he goes, well, I want to see them. I said, okay. So now I, changed my day, and I'm sitting down, I'm watching the videos. I had about a half a dozen or seven girls that I thought were really good. Mm-hmm. So I send them. And there was one girl, and I always use her name when I tell the story. Her name was Stephanie. Mm-hmm. So, and this girl, Stephanie, was like spot on. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If I only sent one, it would have been this girl. Mm-hmm. So the client calls me like an hour later, whatever. He says, okay, let's book Stephanie. And I go, whoa. The deadline is Tuesday at noon. Mm-hmm. I can't. These girls are doing these. Okay. So Tuesday afternoon, I send him with a whole bunch of really great girls. There's not a way in the world he watched them. I literally send him the link. 10 minutes later, he calls me. He goes, okay, let's book Stephanie.
Yeah. So we can only do so much. The moral of the story, we can only do so much. That's the
right. And I didn't want to send it to him early. I wanted to wait till everybody. So there might have been 15 Stephanies on Tuesday.
Sure.
But he saw that one. He saw her first. She was so brilliant, and she was wonderful. And so he said, that's the one I want. And I get that. Yeah. But it's like I use it as an example for girls. Mm-hmm. If you're looking for that perfect little black little cocktail dress, mm-hmm. and you go to Bloomingdale's, and there it is, and it fits you perfectly. It's a size smaller than you normally wear. It's half price. Are you going to buy it? Or are you going to go, maybe I'll go 7 more stores and see if I, you know what I mean? Are you going to buy the perfect dress that makes you look thin and is 50% off? Yeah, you're going to buy it because you just, and you're done.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
That's kind of how we are with casting. If we find what we're looking for, I noticed one of the series I did, I won't say which one, but one of the series, a big series a few years ago, and it was all self-tape. And what we started noticing was, because when we send them the video, of course, there's the first actor, and then the second actor, and then the third. If I put 5 actors on a link, well, there's the one that is the first spot, and then the one that's the last spot.
Sure.
We noticed they were booking all of the first spot actors.
Mm-hmm. You saw the pattern, huh?
I said, look at that.
Yep.
Look at that link.
Yep.
And so my feeling, and they were so swamped.
Yeah.
My feeling was they looked at the first one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's good. On to the next role.
Right.
Yeah, he's good. And I said, let's play a game. I was saying to my office, I said, let's just see. We were going to put so-and-so first. Let's put somebody else and let's see.
And sure enough.
And that's what they were doing. So I just thought, wow. And that's why you want to get your tape in sooner rather than later. Mm-hmm. Because when we start watching, why would I go to person 50 mm-hmm. when persons 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are really good?
Sure.
And I feel badly. So I watch them all.
Mm-hmm.
I watch them all because I feel badly because I know what it takes to do a self-tape. And I don't want to. But I'll tell you what I don't feel badly about is when actors get their self-tapes in late. Mm-hmm. And then they try to play. They go, I was in the middle of uploading and it shut down. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, so you waited till 11:59 on Wednesday night to upload it?
Yeah.
When you got it last Friday?
That's right.
And then comes my well, I need you to extend the deadline. I had an agent from New York call me on Christmas Eve morning, not last year, the year before. And I think it was for Bad Monkey. It was for something I can't remember, but it was for some big project I was doing two Christmases ago. Now it's Christmas Eve morning. And I had given the deadline, because I had to put it out before. I'd given the deadline of Christmas Eve morning because I thought, I don't want people to have to go, I didn't want people to have to figure out how to work on Christmas Eve, how to work on Christmas Day. Let's get it in first thing in the morning on Christmas Eve. They're done. They don't have to think about it. So I'm in a little art gallery store with some friends, and the phone rings at 10:30 in the morning. I don't know the number. I answer it. Hello, I'm so-and-so agent from New York. And the woman got really nasty. And so that's the part of the self-taping thing I don't like, because even though, and I really try to give many days of time, but you can't believe how many times every single project I do, people miss the deadline, and then they get mad at me.
Yeah.
Like it's my fault, and I need to extend the deadline, and I need to, well, we'll send you a WeTransfer. I'm like, no, don't send me a WeTransfer, because then I've got to do the work.
Listen, people continue to amaze us, do they not? As the years go,
No.
And as we get more and more experience doing what we're doing, we continue to be more and more amazed. I want to ask a couple of other quick questions. Start wrapping this up.
Go.
And one question that I have that I love to ask for all of my sort of friends and people kind of in this world of South Florida is looking at Florida in the future and looking at the state of filmmaking in Florida. I mean, of course, unfortunately, funding coming from the state is basically nil. We've seen that. We've seen tax credits not really. I mean, I'm sure there's tax credits out there, but they're not really being focused on by the legislature. And other states and counties and municipalities around the country are, and so productions are going there. With a couple of big names these last couple of years, Bloodline, of course, Bad Monkey, you just mentioned it for Apple TV, and I think some others over the last couple of years, Dexter, of course, too. How do you see this sort of market where, we have some of these bigger productions coming down here? We still have the draw of the beach in Miami and the feel of South Florida, so that's got a storyline to it, right? You can't replace that anywhere on a set. But at the same time, we're sort of struggling to really attract big productions outside of the fact that if it's not in the story, they're probably not going to be here, right? How are you kind of thinking about and seeing this kind of now and in the future, in the coming years?
Well, I know, like everything in life, and it's cyclical. I remember the days many years ago, when Georgia was really big with I'll Fly Away and Heat of the Night and tons of work. And then there was some problem, and I don't know what the problem was. It was a problem with the Teamsters, with the unions. And the Teamsters swore they would never shoot in Georgia again. You see how that went, right? So now Georgia is huge. I've seen Florida where it was there and then it was there. So I've watched it do that. I believe that we will once again have incentives. Right now, there's smaller incentives in various counties. Miami-Dade County has an incentive. Broward County has an incentive. Pinellas County has an incentive. So many counties around the state have incentives. Unfortunately, I don't know if you know this, you may have heard this story, or your listeners may not know. We were given a beautiful incentive back in 12. It was somewhere around there, when Governor Charlie Crist was our governor. And he was all about the film industry. Thank God we had him. And we got, I believe it was close to a $300 million film incentive.
Wow, yeah.
Which was great.
Yeah.
I benefited greatly from that, because for me, from that incentive, I did Burn Notice, Graceland, Magic City, The Glades, and I did a few, 3 or 4 Nickelodeon television series. And that lasted for 3 or 4 years. It was, and then there was money left over, and Bloodline ended up getting some of that around 2015. Okay. So there's that. Now, that money is over, and now now nothing's coming in. So, and then we got people in office who are not for the film.
And legislature too. That's right. Yeah, both the
Right.
governor's office and the legislature, definitely.
Right. So it's doing this. So we were really doing great when Governor Charlie Crist was in office, and then when he was out, then we lost it.
Yeah.
So I believe that at some point, the people who are in office now, obviously they're going to get out of office because they don't stay in office forever.
Yes. Yep.
I'm hopeful that we will be getting new people who govern in Florida, and they will say, "Hey, I think we should have," because there will be people who will be pro film industry, and it will come back. I do believe that.
Well, and really to punch this point too, pro film industry, but like pro money generation for our communities. I mean, all you've got to do is look at municipalities like Albuquerque and Atlanta and, even like Salt Lake City, Utah, and a number of other major metropolises where, they are benefiting from the jobs, the tax dollars, and the economic impact of this. This is an economic decision. It's not, for some reason it became a political decision. I don't understand why or how, and maybe that's a thing
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's a thing to unwind on a different podcast, but like somehow, somehow it became a political question instead of just the economic impact question that it is.
The political, my understanding, what I was told was because typically people in our industry vote a certain way, and some of those legislators are not in that party.
Sure.
So they know if they bring more and more and more those kind of people to town, they may be voted out of office. I don't know if that's true, because I know for me, I was having this conversation with somebody. I said, I might not like the person. I said, but if they're going to support me and my career, there's many people who vote for they vote the not the party.
The no party affiliation.
They vote the issue.
Single issue. Yep.
A single issue. Right. So if this guy or girl, a woman is saying, I will give $500 million to the film. Okay. Now here's something that happened, though. I just want to share this. When we got our $300 million, there were people who scammed. And there was a company in Orlando. I don't know the name of the company, but it was a really great thing. The guy was going to open a school, and what he was going to do was use some of this incentive money and educate young people on filmmaking, and then parlay that in and use the incentive money to create films. So not only was he going to educate, they were going to educate the kids, the students. Then those students would have jobs. Well, they thought this was brilliant. They gave the guy $60 million for that.
I vaguely remember this. I vaguely remember how this story ends. It doesn't end well. Basically, it's with the guy disappearing.
And see that, because of that, then the legislators look at that and go, yeah, we're not going to do that again. I mean, it's really terrible.
Yeah, that's poor appropriations, right? That's poor administration of funds, not necessarily that it's not.
Yeah, they need to pay attention a little more.
Yeah. maybe watch where you're cutting a check to. So let's talk real fast as we start to wrap this up. Let's just talk about your newsletter. And I think you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, you mentioned one class in particular about a friend of yours for many years who helps with the lighting. Is it Terry Berland?
Oh, Terry does commercials.
Terry does commercials. That's who I did. I did Terry Berland's commercial.
Yes, which,
now that I've mentioned it, let me put in the show notes. It was excellent. Lori, you were there. I think it's how we met after. I think we had already booked something once or twice, and then we met. But anyway, Terry Berland's class is excellent. So then the self-taping class is something different. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
I have several different classes I have that I host and that I teach. But Terry Berland does commercial auditioning. And then Dean Feldman does all the technology, from the lighting to the sound to the how to do an iPhone and how to or an Android and your backdrops. I mean, every single nook and cranny you can think of, he goes over. It's a very extensive course. We're actually going to be putting one together again in the fall. We haven't set our dates yet. This weekend, actually, there's a wonderful actor slash instructor. His name is Mark McCauley. And Mark is actually doing in-person. I do all my classes
different.
on.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
different.
Mark
Yeah.
wants, people are not doing as much. So we're keeping the class. I'm hosting it. We're keeping the room small. We were doing it Saturday only. It's a 1-day course, Saturday only, but we filled, so it's spill over to Sunday. We still have like 2 or 3 spots left for Sunday, but that's an in-person where you see what it's like when you walk into the room and you get put on tape and watch it back and critique it.
And by the way, if you've never had a chance to walk into a casting room and do that, like at Universal Casting or some of these other ones that still physically do castings, if you haven't had a chance to do that, you have to, because it's a nerve-wracking experience, and there's a whole other episode about it. It's a nerve-wracking experience, but to be able to do that in a classroom setting first with the people who are normally on the other side of the table is really valuable for somebody who might be what I call the baby actors, kind of the people who are just getting started.
Yeah, and you have to realize that you walk in and you're nervous, and I get that. On the other side of the camera, we're a little nervous too, because we're trying to book a part, and we're begging in our minds that you're going to be that answer.
Right. Everyone that walks in, I bet. Everyone that walks in, you're hoping, please be the one. Please be the one. Please be great. Oh my God, please nail this.
So we want you to be good.
Right.
Because I've heard stories where, well, I auditioned for so-and-so and they don't like me. And I go, no, if they didn't like you, they wouldn't ask you to audition in the first place.
Right.
You have to understand that. If you audition for me 5 times for the same project, and then people say, well, Lori didn't like me. I'm like, no. I wouldn't invite you time after time after time to audition if I didn't like you.
Right.
And I know that a lot of actors are incredibly insecure.
Yeah.
And people are in general, But know that if you are invited to audition, then we like you. They like me. They like me a lot.
That's right. And the other way to look at it too is if you don't have evidence that they don't like you, then why are you speculating? Don't speculate that they don't like you, right? I mean, because you're never going to hear a casting director say, I don't like you. You're never going to get feedback from a casting director. You're never going to hear that they don't like you. You're never going to hear from your agent that you weren't liked or that you were wrong for the role. You're never going to get any of that feedback. So don't bother trying to create evidence that they don't like you. Right. Just do the audition the best you can and walk out and move on with your life. I mean, that's literally that's got to be the way for someone to approach it.
Right. I'm not inviting them to audition.
Right. I mean, we just wouldn't know it.
And understand, I might like you as a person. I might not think you're right for this role.
Right.
The role is something, I don't know, something more severe, and you come across sweet. Or the role is something, harder and you're softer, or, there's a zillion different reasons why you might not be invited to audition, or you might not know this. From the time that the role was put out on Breakdown, they've then either written the part out or they've changed it completely. It was a man, now it's a woman. It was 50s, now she's 20s. I mean, things that you will never know, that you won't be privy to, have happened behind the scenes. And then you go, I don't understand. I'm perfect for this. I don't know why she's not seeing me. It's like, oh, they wrote it out. Or, oh, the producer's brother's going to play that role. Or, oh, the producer's going to play that role.
That's right.
You don't know.
But not Lori, the casting director. She ain't playing it. Everybody be known. She ain't doing it. Stop trying to ask her producers out there to join. She's not doing it. She's said it here.
The only time I did, I was an extra on Miami Vice, and I played a hooker sitting at a bar.
That sounds fun. If you're going to pick a role, there's the one.
I wish I remembered what episode it was. I don't remember. They got me all dressed up. They said, come on, we're going to put you on a bar stool at the bar. I was like, okay, that's fun.
Hey, listen, if you're going
I didn't pick anybody's role.
If you're going to pick a role, that's the one to do. Lori Wyman, thank you so very much for your time here today. It's been a pleasure. It's been wonderful listening to you, as it always has been. Everybody out there, please check out Lori Wyman's books. Please also check out her newsletter. It's theorganicactor.com. I can say that I've taken the classes and I've really appreciated them. So thank you for all your time and thank you for everything you do. Hey, Thomas here again. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. The show is better when I get to hear from you. Got a question to ask our producer? Or you got a show idea or a guest I should interview? Maybe you just want to tell me that you love or can't stay on the show. Either way, I want to hear from you. You can reach me at bigbreakpod@gmail.com, and you can find my acting profile at castingtom.com or at castingtom. Big Break Pod is created and hosted by me, Thomas M. Copeland. The show is a proud member of the Pod Populi Network. Original music by me. Find the show online at bigbreakpod.com and at bigbreakpod.